I've even forgotten what. Hello and welcome to Premier Injuries. I definitely didn't forget the name of the company there at the beginning of the intro. We are back for the final game week of the season. When we put this up on Reddit, we put let's have some fun because it is the final game week. We're coming towards the end of this very crazy season. It both feels like the longest and shortest season ever in Premier League history. But as always, we are here each week for your questions about your fantasy Premier League teams. Just before we get into answering your questions, please do remember to subscribe to the channel. This might be the last one for this game week and for this season. But I tell you now, we've got some great content lined up for the summer. Some fantastic interviews, some really good in-depth tactical and data analysis. And as always, you want to be watching me and Ben talking absolute BS through the summer as well, with some of our great impressions, terrible dad jokes, and all the other content that comes with us. But yes, of course, we are talking to Mr. Ben Dinnery himself. And I do have to ask, Ben, are you excited for this game week 38? Because you still can catch up with me. It's only a 30-point difference. Does that make you really look forward to this end of season final batch of games?
I have got a bench boost in hand, so that I'm going to need some luck, not only in the players returning, but trying to nail down those starters as well. I had a look through the data. The number of rotations on that final day basically skyrocket. So I'm going to have to keep everything crossed and hope for the best. It could have been a lot worse. I think the Mo Salah blanking on Wednesday evening certainly helped down at Turf Moor. I expected them to return. But of course, Liverpool at Anfield against Crystal Palace, who are decimated by injury. I know, as it currently stands, I think you've tripled up on Liverpool. It's a good shout. And I need to be finding differentials to try and, scrape back those points. So, look, it's tough. But, there's enough difference between the teams that, should one of the players bang or a couple of those, then, that 30 points will quickly disappear.
Well, you are Mr. Differential Dinnery. You do find them. And I have fingers crossed for you for that end of season, but I do want to finish ahead of you because the bragging rights across next season we'll be talking about it for many a game week. But yeah, let's move on to what the community wants to know. I will say I'm a little bit disappointed that there's been no questions like what's your favourite breakfast cereal or anything like that. People are far too serious going into this game week 38. And I think the first serious question here from Quirum Paris has asked you about Harry Kane. He said, how was Kane recovered to play the Carabao Cup final?
Yeah, I mean, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And if that was his will for Harry Kane to miraculously recover so he could play in that Carabao Cup final, then, I bow down to a higher power. And by the grace of God, Harry got out there on that Wembley turf, thankfully.
I mean, we talk about here the possibility of whoever wins between you and me for next season, keeping that over the other. It's just interesting that this Harry Kane question keeps recurring. I'm not sure why the community is so fixated on it, Ben. I mean, do you have any kind of assumptions why?
Not really. I mean, and it wasn't even FPL related. It was actually Carabao Cup. So it had no impact on fantasy football. I think what we should do, we should draw a line in the sand and we should all move on.
A peaceful offering there. Diamond Rumble has asked, what do you reckon the odds are of Jota starting on Sunday?
Starting, pretty slim. We're not even sure if he's going to be fit yet. All we know, initial scan results came back and showed that it wasn't as bad as initially thought. Impact injury bone in his foot. There's still a lot of swelling there. And Jurgen Klopp, in his own words, said there was a tiny, tiny chance of him actually recovering for Sunday. But again, you look at Liverpool's result at Turf Moor, they look at their performances in recent weeks, playing really well. Do you want to be throwing Diogo Jota into that attack, given the fact that, we've just seen Firmino is probably the most likely make weight, you would think. He's back on the score sheet again. You wouldn't be taking Mo Salah out your team, and Sadio Mane, he's just had his little spat after being dropped at Old Trafford. So I think there's more of a chance of him making the matchday squad. But again, with one eye on the Euros and his potential involvement with Portugal, it could be one that Jurgen Klopp says, why risk it? We don't really need you. And you take the time to recover properly.
It's a shame that he didn't think that around the FC Midtjylland game a little bit earlier in the season, because we might not have had these worries kind of rumbling on towards this end of season period. Pouncing Zebra, I think that's a really cool username, has asked, do you expect results for Everton, Villa and or Wolves due to their competition fielding weaker teams? Who are some shouts that may perform even with a difficult fixture difficulty rating on the last day? They said that they're looking at Sigurdsson, Digne, Watkins, Grealish and Cody. So let's start with team by team. Everton, what do you expect the results there, and do you like any of their assets?
Right, you're talking about teams playing weekend sides, and Pep Guardiola's got two starting 11s there that could both compete very well in that Premier League. So, if he rolls out 5, 6, 7, 8 changes, there isn't going to be a dramatic drop in the level of performance. I would certainly expect somebody like Kevin De Bruyne to come back into that starting 11. There's one change. He's working his way back from injury, so he's going to need minutes ahead of the Champions League. That's hardly a downgrade. I think Torres was very unlucky to be substituted early on after Juan Cancelo was sent off and last time out. So, if Torres starts, that's hardly a weakened Manchester City team. Even if he doesn't, you've still got the likes of Gabriel Jesus and maybe Sergio Aguero, if fit. So for me, it's still a very, very tough fixture. Those City players as well, will have one eye on the Champions League final. And although, the nucleus of that side will be locked in, there will be one or two on the fringes of that squad that may feel that they can force their way in. You're still looking at the likes of maybe Phil Foden, the Mahrez, the Sterlings, like I say, the Torres, Bernardo, Gundogan, Fernandinho, Rodri. All of those places. Really, it's a tough team to nail down. So, do I fancy Everton? It's certainly been performing better away from Goodison Park. And they weren't great against Wolves, particularly in the first half. Wolves dominated possession, maybe a little bit unlucky not to go ahead. Richarlison gets an early goal in the second half, and that's the way the game stayed. I'm an owner of Richarlison and Digne. I will obviously stick with them because I'll not be taking any hits. But would I be going out and fishing for Everton assets on this final weekend? Certainly not.
So moving the attention to Aston Villa, so they are also playing a Champions League finalist in Chelsea. Do you like any of their assets at all?
The two standout options. I think Ollie Watkins. I think he's finishing the season well. Had another good game on Wednesday night. Got himself a goal. Dean Smith. He's been eulogising over his striker. It's his first one. Let's not forget, in the Premier League. So he's made that transition, that step up from the Championship without any problem whatsoever. And of course, Jack Grealish, despite the fact that he's coming off the back of a fairly lengthy injury, he's been integrated. It's seamless. He carries that Villa team. He raises that performance. But again, it's not all over and done for Chelsea. I think they still want to go out there and get a result. And they've got the Champions League, but they want to carry that momentum as well, that carry that little bit of confidence into the game. So, even though Tuchel, another tinkerer, I think Chelsea have got a good solid 16, 17, 18 first team players who can, interchange and be involved. So I don't really see that, I don't think Villa's a standout game either. to be sort of expectations of pulling a result against Chelsea. I think that's another tough game.
And with the question around Wolves, they've asked about Connor Cody, and I can kind of see that, ideology, why you'd go there, because Wolves have kind of shored up a little bit more at the back over the last 6 game weeks. 7.91 XG conceded, so that puts them in the top half of the table. But they're, not matching that. They've conceded 9 goals against that 7.91. We've said it quite a few times before. Patricio, all that defensive back line has a mistake in them. They're not as high quality as usual as well, because they've lost the likes of Johnny. And so I feel like maybe Man United might not score bucket loads of goals in that final game, because they are missing Harry Maguire, who allows them to actually play. He's one of their most important passers. But I still can see Wolves conceding in that game. I mean, is that something that you agree with as well, and you just kind of avoid the Wolves assets as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen, which is practically, going against the grain for the full season. No, heavily rotating in recent weeks. 4 and 5 changes, giving youth a little bit of a chance. I think he's brought in Gibbs White, Vitinha. He even brought in Ruddy for Patricio midweek there. So, he's chopping and changing things. He's given Max Kilman a chance. Sias has been in and out, even dropped Semedo. Bowley came into that back line. Whether he'd be to play another game in quick succession remains to be seen. Obviously, he's coming off the back of long COVID. So there's a lot of question marks in and around that Wolves team. And of course, Ollie hinted that he would make changes as well. I see this as a pretty drab game, if the truth be told. I'm expecting it. I wouldn't surprise me if it was a ball draw, if it was a nils each, or a fairly tight, 1-0, ones each. I think, with the Europa League final being so close to that final day, Ollie will want to protect some of his main assets. Wolves will be just happy to get this season out of the way. Yes, it's the last game at Molineux, and there will be supporters there, but do you know what? I think, you will probably have Raul Jimenez and all of the injured, like long-term injured guys there watching the game. It'll be a good atmosphere, and I think both teams would take the draw.
Would you also, in terms of maybe going back to the Chelsea and Man City argument, would you challenge the narrative that a lot of people are saying that because they're doing so well, Man City have played weaker teams? I mean, our data here at Premier Injuries is that Tuchel and Guardiola both managed a large number of rotations each game week through the season. I mean, what was it, 6 or 7? And you kind of explained that was, if you took out Edison, more than 50% of the team each game week.
Yeah, but what we were talking about as well, we were talking about load management as well with a lot of players. Fixtures, well, it was condensed. They were coming thick and fast every sort of 2, 3, 4 days. That isn't the case now. I think after Sunday's game, am I right in thinking Champions League finals not until next Saturday? So players have 6 days to recover for that. That's more than enough time. You want to maintain that little bit of sharpness, that little bit of competitive edge. And for me, if I was to manage, then I would want to be going out with a strong team, with my team that I think is more or less capable of going out there in that Champions League final and getting the job done. Slightly different for Manchester United because it's a much quicker turnaround. So that's why I would expect, changes with that. So, but yeah, look, even if they do make a host of changes, there's still very strong lineups. And really, the Manchester City team, if you would ask 100 people what their strongest starting level was, it wouldn't surprise you if you had 100 different answers. So really, you're saying rotation, but is it really rotation? Not in the true sense of the word, because we don't really know what their strongest 11 is, or because the players are that good.
It truly is Pep and Tuchel roulette. You just can't keep up with it. Ambitious Line 9686 has asked Firmino versus Mane. Who should I bring in? great question. And we did actually debate this. So just to remind people to look at our attacking assets discussion for this game week 38. We did talk through a little bit more of the numbers and the tactics, but just kind of maybe opening out that discussion again, Ben, what did you think on that one?
Yeah, I think over the course of the season, both players have been hugely disappointing. It's only Salah that's performed anywhere near the levels that we know he can do. And with Marnie and Firmino looks as if he's finding a little bit of form. I think he's been on the score sheet 3 times, maybe in the last 3 games, if I recall correctly. So that would suggest that maybe he's got that goal scoring touch back, whereas Marnie, just seems to be off the boil a little bit. But ultimately these are not bad players overnight, and I really do expect a bit of a cricket score against Crystal Palace, albeit in Roy Hodgson's final game. I think it'll be foot to the floor stuff from Liverpool. They're looking good. They're looking slick. They're looking form. They've got confidence. And if you've got the likes of Trent and Robertson, who looks back in the groove and supplying the bullets well, then I can see Liverpool easily getting 4, 5, or 6, and those players, the Manes and the Firminos, won't be too far away.
Just on the individual data of those two then, over the last 6 game weeks, Firmino has 3 goals compared to Mane's 2. But then when you look at the kind of XG and XGI data, Mane really does pip Firmino. So Mane has 121 minutes per XGI compared to Firmino's 190. Over the last 6 game weeks, Firmino has 1.9 XG and 2.37 XGI, whereas Mane has the higher 2.48 and 3.67 XGI. So the data for me kind of leans me towards Mane. Obviously, it depends with price points, makeup of your team. Maybe you can take a hit and have a bit of fun in that last game week. It depends who's in your kind of title rivalry. If you've got Money League on the line, then maybe you want to play more conservatively and not go for that punty option. It really is down to the makeup of your team. But if you're asking me between just picking of the two, I would go for Sadio Mane. So the last question of the last episode of this season, I just want to emphasise that because we're going to be straight back in next season, and we'll be doing ones for the Euros as well. So we're not really going anyway, and you'll especially find that out if you do hit that subscribe button. But the final question is 7 times 10 to the 27. They have asked, accepting Liverpool and Leeds, which goalkeepers with a decent chance of a clean sheet will definitely start on Sunday? So in terms of it, it's a bit of a difficult question because we both said, didn't we, that clean sheets are unlikely, Ben?
We did, but with Crystal Palace, we've got doubts over Christian Benteke. So he's been the man in form for the Eagles in recent game weeks. I think he's got 4 and 4. And, if without him in that Palace attack, maybe it is a little bit blunted. You look at Mateta, maybe Ayew, Batshuayi, who could potentially come in. That Alisson's going to start, and I suppose he offers now an attacking threat as well as clean sheet possibilities. And in with regards to Leeds, you've got a definite starter in Kiko Casilla, because Marcelo Bielsa has already confirmed that Meslier will be on the bench. But again, you're talking about it's going to be a punt. Anything can happen on this final day. If I was to go for a plum for a clean sheet, it would have to be Alisson, just because of the personnel concerns and the fact that Liverpool, can't afford any slip-ups. Going to Ellen Road with West Brom, it might be one last hurrah for Big Sam. They've pulled off some decent performances and results of late. They were great against Liverpool, very unfortunate there. So, and it wouldn't surprise me if they were to nick a goal. So, yeah, it would have to be Alisson.
And just on the teams outside of that group there, we kind of went through Burnley. we weren't 100% sure because we don't know which goalkeeper will be fit for that game. Fulham, we weren't too keen on, so we're just going through the fixture difficulty rating. Sheffield United, you were actually more keen on, and in the last two that we looked at were Newcastle and Arsenal, and both of them we were just a little bit meh to them. But yeah, interesting. Why don't you explain like your feelings on maybe why Sheffield United might actually keep a clean sheet this weekend?
Yeah, so we spoke ahead of last night's fixtures, and obviously Sheffield United were at that point coming off the back of a 1-0 win, clean sheet, full of confidence, obviously playing for Paul Heckingbottom. And they were forced into one change on Wednesday night at St James's Park. George Baldock he's managing a bit of an ongoing hamstring issue. It didn't affect the teams too much. And, you know, I think Newcastle, obviously, we know that they edged the game 1-0. It should have been more, the truth be told. But for me, Sheffield United heading into this final game week, I think they've got a really, really strong chance. I mean, I do like Burnley and Chris Wood, the form that he's been in. A little bit unfortunate, maybe not to score against Liverpool at Turf Moor on Wednesday night as well. He's getting all the plaudits, but I just think Burnley overall now, they've been managing a lot of ongoing injury problems in key positions. Players have just become a little bit fatigued, a little bit jaded. There was a lot of talk for large, parts of the season that, would Burnley survive? Would this be the season that they drop down into the second tier? Sean Dyche has pulled it out of the bag once again. A huge amount of effort. Got some great results, but I think, just an accumulation of dragging these players up and playing almost that rigid 4-4-2 and with a nucleus of that team, it just ultimately it's going to start, taking its toll on the players. And, whatever happens, like in this run-in, they can walk away with their heads held high. It's another great season for them on a shoestring budget and be very happy. And I think just for me, again, I think it'll be quite a tight one. It's Bramall Lane. Sheffield United supporters in the ground for the first time this season. They want to carry the momentum through to the Championship next year. I wouldn't expect a mass exodus of Sheffield United players. So you're going to, they're playing for contracts. They're playing for, places in next season's squad. I think Heckingbottom's probably got a good chance as well of maybe staying up, staying on with the club. So, yeah, we talked about it. If I'm going to plumb for maybe players from Sheffield United, maybe on fan team, then I could even say a triple up in there with maybe Ramsdale, between the sticks. He's been a decent form of late as well. He's answered a few critics. He's still young. He's still learning his trade. And yeah, so that's my long-winded view on the Blades.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure people will want to know that because it is another differential dinery pick for that last game week of the season. But that is it. That is the final game week of the season, game week 38. Just want to thank everybody for getting involved each game week with these questions. We really value them. It helps us with our thinking, helps us to know if you're enjoying the content, and we look forward to being with you through the summer and into next season as well. And with that, we will be doing content, so make sure to subscribe, make sure to like the videos, and make sure to comment and share them as well so that your friends and whoever else is playing FPL can enjoy them as well. But I'm going to say a goodbye from me and a final good luck for that final game week 38. I'm going to throw it over to Ben for the final time.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks, everybody in the Reddit community. It took a few years for me to join and be a part of it, but glad we did. And we really do enjoy these Q&As. Like I say, lots more content coming over the summer. And even looking ahead to 2021, 2022, we'll be looking for ideas and thoughts and maybe some suggestions on how you think we can maybe tailor things and create things going forward. So yeah, keep tuned, keep subscribing, keep following social media, and most of all, keep in touch. But for now, good luck on the final weekend, and we'll see you again very soon.